I kind of have a cold, so this might not go so well. But, so I guess I'm just supposed to read you my paper, which I will. Um, so this is how it begins. I learned to read at a very young age. Being exposed to the world of books and literature from infancy sparked a love of reading and stories that resonated with me. I was read to on a daily basis, sometimes going through 3 books in one sitting, and at least 2 books a day. I was told that I would sit in front of my kindergarten class holding a storybook upside down, and I would read the entire story to them without missing a word, and turning the pages at the right time, as if I was really reading them the book. I learned to read at school and had that learning reinforced at home. I was surrounded by towers of books always, some which were mine, and others which were heavy medical journals or dictionaries. Clearly my parents. My aunt is an ESL teacher, and visits to her house were always chances for me to get new books as presents or to show off my new vocabulary. I first learned how to read and write English, but as I got older, Korean was introduced to me. However, because of the accessibility of learning English, Korean was often pushed to the side. The only people in the entire town who could teach me Korean were my parents. Comparing my parents and their little use of Korean to the hordes of teachers and kids who used English every day, I was bombarded with the need to understand English and be the same as everyone else. I still can understand Korean and can read my native language slowly. But there was no need to learn another language when I excelled in reading and writing the language of the U.S. See, I would devour books like they were chocolates. As I grew older, the stacks of books became higher as the books became thicker. I never imagined reading in Korean, as I never saw any books written in Korean around me. I would go to the library at my school and at my town, where everyone knew me, my name, and I had already read many of the books. I was the reading champion in my elementary school, where you would read a book and get tested on the information about the story and win points. A normal book would be worth about 5 points for 10 questions answered correctly. The more difficult reading level of a book, the more points you could earn. In 3rd grade, I won 365 points. In the 5th grade, I won 1,076 points. I was the youngest person ever to win that many points. The tests were taken on a computer and electronically graded, so there was no favoritism. I learned how to type on computer games in school and learned the history of the world with Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego. In school, on these computers, was the first time I typed and learned about the internet and what it could do for me. To a girl who grew up on the stories of fables and tales, the internet opened a wide variety of sides to stories. Take, for example, the classic fairy tale stories of Cinderella or Little Red Riding Hood. Most people know the children's versions of happiness and fun. However, further research shows a different story in different cultures. These changes are a result of mistranslations or just different cultures. Either way, the slight differences changes the stories, and that fueled me to know more about the stories and the cultures that they represented. It became apparent that each story held certain traits or material things higher, and it was a reflection of their culture. This created a thirst for knowledge about different cultures and their stories. With the learning about new cultures and faraway lands, the need to understand languages was always at the back of my mind. I learned a little Spanish, Japanese, French, and Latin in middle school, and I knew some Korean from home. As I went on to high school, I picked Spanish to be my foreign language. Learning to type in Spanish wasn't that difficult, but it showed a level of diversity that I didn't know that my computer had. I quickly became aware of how in-depth the language knowledge of my computer was. Grammar, vocabulary, and accents were no match for the cold, calculating brain of my computer. As I got in touch with my paternal cousins, I became aware of my deficiencies in the lack of my understanding of Korean. I learned that my new Apple computer had the ability to write in Korean, and I became driven to learn Korean. I've written in Korean on my computer and used Rosetta Stone frequently to become more proficient in my language. Words hold so much more power than we realize. Our whole lives are reliant on the fact that we understand the languages around us. Through our understanding and our ability to communicate with the people around us, we make connections for our life. Without literature, my life would have been very different, and I cannot fathom a world without the ability to communicate and have proficiency with a language. Awesome.